Coming up on Arirang News. President Yoon and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo are calling for dialogue with the medical community. But as the government stands firm on its plan, more medical professors are continuing to submit their resignation letters. President Yoon says South Korea is to expand the production size of its biotechnology industry to 200 trillion won by 2035. His remarks came at a policy discussion with citizens in Chungcheongbuk-do province, which he says will be a leading biotech base. The latest study shows last year, those aged 65 and older took up nearly 20% of the population in South Korea. And it also says, in less than a century, they are to account for half. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. A few hours ago, Korea's biggest doctor group elected a new leader, but one who is against the government's plan to increase the medical school enrollment quota. Meanwhile, President Yoon proposes discussing next year's medical budget with the medical community, while Prime Minister Han Duck-soo suggests creating a negotiating body with the doctors. Our Choi Soo-hyung starts us off.
The Korean government has once again made it clear that it will stick to its original plan to increase the medical school enrollment quota.
As of March 20th, we finalized the expansion of the country's medical school quota by 2,000 for the 2025 academic year, along with sorting out allocations for each school. We're moving ahead smoothly with the next steps, such as incorporating these changes into university admissions. The government will complete follow-up measures by May.
Meanwhile, on Tuesday, South Korean President Yoon visited a general hospital in Cheongju, Chungcheongbuk-do province, and proposed that the medical field discuss the healthcare budget for next year. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo also met with medical school leaders to propose dialogue between medical sector stakeholders. Also, to facilitate talks, the government has postponed the suspension of doctors' licenses who have walked out in protest.
The government will find flexible solutions for the administrative measures regarding the departure of trainee doctors from the medical field in order to minimize the medical service disruption.
The exodus of medical school professors nationwide continues. To show their solidarity with trainee doctors, on Monday, most of the country's 40 medical school professors submitted resignation letters, including almost 430 at Ulsan University and around 400 at Seoul National University.
Unless the government withdraws its plan to increase the medical school quota and allocation, this crisis cannot be resolved. We are ready to discuss all pending issues in front of the public, but I don't believe withdrawing the plan equals to eliminating the expansion entirely.
Amidst the confusion, a pediatrician Im Hyun-taek was elected on Tuesday evening as the new leader of the Korean Medical Association. However, there is speculation that may push for an even larger scale walkout because the newly elected individual has voiced opposition to the government's plan. To minimize disruption to patient care, the government says it will deploy an additional 1,900 physician assistant nurses alongside the current 5,000 deployed. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, amid government belt-tightening, more of next year's budget will be used for R&D centered on AI and other advanced technologies. This departure from an earlier stance was unveiled at today's cabinet meeting. Also, spending will be increased to boost the birth rate and medical services. Our Lee Soo-jin explains.
South Korea's national budget for next year will focus on bolstering research and development, battling the country's chronically low birth rate and expanding medical services. The guidelines for government spending in 2025 were confirmed at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday.
특히 AI, 첨단 바이오, 양자 등 3대 게임 체인저인 국가 미래 전략 기술에 대한 R&D 투자를 확대할 것입니다. 이러한 투자 확대와 함께 도전적이고 혁신적인 R&D에 대한 예타를 면제하고 연구 장비를 적시에 도입할 수 있도록 시스템 개혁을 추진할 것입니다.
The decision to increase the R&D budget for next year is a shift from it being targeted for budget cuts in this year's budget, which drew a backlash from the scientific community. But despite the move towards increasing R&D spending, the total budget is expected to be raised by only 4.2% compared to this year, in line with the government's focus on maintaining sound fiscal policies. This will amount to around 680 trillion won or 507 billion US dollars. The Finance Ministry announced that next year's R&D budget will have a greater focus on increasing investment in young researchers and advanced equipment, as well as expanding collaboration with international research institutions such as NASA. The ministry also plans to provide tax exemptions and reductions to further upgrade R&D. Another area the government will boost spending on will be efforts to bolster the country's lackluster birth rate. To do so, it plans to focus on improving the work-life balance, making childcare services more readily available, and providing housing support for young people who get married or have children. This comes as the nation's birth rate plunged to a record low of 0.65 in the fourth quarter of 2023, falling into the 0.6 range for the first time. In addition, the budget will include measures to increase investment in the healthcare system, an area that's facing growing instability amid a large-scale walkout by doctors. The government aims to increase access to medical services in essential fields such as critical care and pediatrics, especially in rural areas. It will also direct its budget towards boosting R&D in the medical field as well as expansion of the medical school admissions quota. 이수진, Arirang News.
At today's policy discussion with the citizens held in Cheongju, Chungcheongbuk-do province, President Yoon Suk-yeol said the region will be a leading biotech base. While promising a drastic increase in the R&D investment, he laid out his plan to create the nation's own Boston biotech cluster there. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
South Korea is looking to foster its advanced biotechnology industry's manufacturing capacity to 200 trillion Korean won by 2035. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday as he held a policy discussion with citizens on the topic at the nation's bioindustry concentrated region of Cheongju, Chungcheongbuk-do province.
더욱이 지금은 첨단 바이오 분야가 전통적인 생명과학과 보건의료를 넘어 에너지, 소재, 식품, 환경을 비롯한 산업 전반에 혁신을 일으키고 있습니다. 또한 우리 인류가 직면한 여러 난제를 풀어가는 데에도 첨단 바이오 기술이 반드시 필요합니다.
He added that by that year, there will be 1,000 new startups in the industry annually, with the government's support. Also, the government will be looking to aggressively invest in R&D of advanced biotechnology, including digital bio, which combines the AI, digital, and bio sectors. He pledged that the nearby county of Osonggun, which hosts the nation's Food and Drug Safety Ministry and relevant bio companies, will be the next Boston cluster. This also includes attracting legal and consulting industries to the region, which would further develop the region in general. In addition, he said, the make-or-break aspect of advanced biotechnology depends on how data are handled, pledging to create a biodata platform that integrates various biodata systems, providing services that researchers from industry, academia, research institutions, and hospitals want and need. He also spoke on the next pandemic, which he says many experts think is inevitable.
우리가 이제 이 백신 기술에 대한 우리 백신 주권을 이제 확보하기 위해서 또 다른 팬데믹이 오더라도 신속하게 우리 국민의 체질에 맞는 백신을 개발하기 위해서 일단 mRNA 이 백신 개발에 착수할 것입니다.
In the meantime, he also emphasized the importance of local public education in the region. He said a specialized high school in the bio industry will be open to foster talent in the field, while Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology's local campus will work with local government for educational opportunities. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The latest study sheds light on South Korea's population crisis. Last year, those aged 65 and older took up nearly 20% of the population in South Korea. And it also says in less than a century, they are to account for half. Our Moon Hye-ryun has more.
As the number of births in South Korea plummets, the country's population is also on a downward spiral. That's according to the annual report on Korean society released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday, which showed that South Korea's population came to just over 51 million in 2023. It's forecast to drop to as low as 36 million by 2072, with some stark differences in the proportion of age groups in the population. Last year, those aged 15 to 64 made up the majority of the population at just under 71%. But less than 50 years from now, this age group is expected to be around 46% of the population, with people aged 65 and above making up the majority at over 47%. This bleak projection comes on the back of the lowest fertility rates the country has seen since data was first compiled in 1970. In 2023, the fertility rate in Korea, the average number of children a woman is expected to have in her lifetime, dipped to 0.72 births. The total number of births recorded came to around 230,000, and this is less than a half of the total tallied in 2012. This figure has seen a consistent decline since the 2000s, considering in 2000 around 640,000 babies were born. This fell to the 400,000 range from 2002 to 2016, picking up pace and falling to the 300,000 range between 2017 and 2019, and down to the 200,000 range from 2020. Data from the same report also show that more and more people are choosing to live alone. The percentage of single-person households in South Korea was 34.5% in 2022, compared to around 27% 7 years before that. The percentage of single-person or two-person households have seen an upward trend over the years, while those with 3 or more people have seen a consistent drop, showing the social trend where fewer people are choosing to get married or have children. A survey conducted by Statistics Korea last year showed social issues that affect an aging population, with many of those aged over 60 years old saying that they felt lonely or that they felt nobody really knew or understood them. While on average, the proportion of people across all age groups responding that they felt lonely dropped by 0.7 percentage points compared to the year before. A higher percentage of people in their 50s and 60s said they felt lonely compared to younger age groups. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korea's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik has called on the military to completely destroy the enemy if it engages in provocations near the northern limit line. The order came during his visit to the border island of Baekneung-do on Tuesday, where he explained that there is a high chance that North Korea will engage in provocations using cruise missiles, coastal artillery, and torpedoes. The defense chief also paid tribute to the 46 sailors who were killed during the sinking of the Cheonan corvette in a North Korean torpedo attack in 2010 in waters near Baekneung-do Island. Shin's visit came as South Korea on Tuesday marked the 14th anniversary of the Cheonan incident. North Korea has said that it'll not hold a bilateral summit with Japan. According to the regime's state-run news agency on Tuesday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's powerful sister Kim Yo-jong stated that any offer of negotiations from Japan would be rejected. Kim Yo-jong said in a statement that Japan has no courage to change its history or to plan the next step between the two sides. She also said Japan has interfered by mentioning nuclear and missile issues. Kim Yo-jong recently said that Japan's prime minister has conveyed hopes for a summit, while Fumio Kishida answered that nothing has been decided. The UN Security Council has passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, with the U.S. abstaining. With this, the rift between the U.S. and Israel looks to be deepening. Shin Se-byuk explains.
The United Nations Security Council on Monday adopted a resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. The resolution, which passed 14-0 with the U.S. abstaining, demands an immediate ceasefire that could lead to a permanent and sustainable truce. It also called for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. This marks the first time the Security Council has adopted a resolution demanding a ceasefire related to the situation in Gaza.
This bloodbath has continued for far too long. It is our obligation to put an end to this bloodbath before it is too late.
The U.S. explained its reasons for abstention, stating that while it agrees a ceasefire is necessary, it believes certain, quote, key edits were missing in the resolution.
Certain key edits were ignored, including our request to add a condemnation of Hamas.
The White House National Security Advisor John Kirby stated in a briefing later the same day that the U.S. decision not to exercise its veto does not indicate a shift in U.S. policy direction. Kirby added that the U.S. backed a ceasefire but did not support the resolution because the text did not condemn Hamas. Following the adoption, Hamas welcomed the UNSC resolution, saying it was ready to engage in an immediate prisoner swap with Israel. Meanwhile, Israel, which has consistently opposed a ceasefire on the grounds that it would solely benefit Hamas, expressed particular dissatisfaction with the United States for not using its veto power this time. This led to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu abruptly canceling the planned visit of a high-level delegation to the U.S. next week. The White House expressed its very disappointment over Netanyahu's decision, but said talks between U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant would go ahead. 신새벽, Arirang News.
Also on the international front, while acknowledging the role of radical Islamists in the tragic killings of innocent people at a Russian music venue last Friday, President Vladimir Putin insists that Ukraine is behind this. Lee Seung-jae covers his comments.
For the first time since the deadly terror attack at the Crocus City Hall near Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin acknowledged that radical Islamists were behind the attack that killed at least 139 people, including 3 children.
We know that the crime was committed by the hands of radical Islamists, followers of an ideology that the Islamic world itself has been fighting against for centuries.
However, despite ISIS releasing a 90-second video claiming responsibility for the deadly terror attack, Putin insisted that Ukraine was ultimately behind the attack.
And immediately a question arises, who benefits from this? This atrocity may just be a link in a whole series of attempts by those who have been at war with our country since 2014 by the hands of the neo-Nazi Kyiv regime. And the Nazis, as is well known, have never hesitated to use the dirtiest and most inhumane means to achieve their goals.
Washington once again refuted the accusation, calling it a propaganda campaign by the Kremlin, emphasizing that the Islamic State alone carried out the attack and had no connection with Ukraine. France also contradicted Putin, saying that their intelligence indicate radical Islamists were behind the attack and not Ukraine. Meanwhile, at a counterterrorism meeting chaired by Putin, the head of the committee investigating Friday's terror attack said it was carefully planned and prepared. It also said that all 4 key suspects, all of whom were Tajikistan nationals, pleaded guilty in court and testified in detail about the instructions given to them before carrying out the deadly attack. It's been reported that 3 more men from Tajikistan have been detained on suspicion of helping prepare the terrorist attack. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Africa, Senegal has changed its government for the first time in 12 years. According to foreign media outlets on Monday local time, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, a 44-year-old opposition candidate, has won the presidential election. He received a majority of over 53% of the vote, surpassing 17 other candidates. The 44-year-old opposition leader becomes the youngest president in Senegal's history. Faye promised to govern with transparency, tackling corruption and seeking to stabilize prices. The election marks the 4th peaceful and democratic change of government since Senegal gained independence from France in 1960. The new university semester is a month old in South Korea, and many students are facing high food costs caused by inflation. Our Park Gun went out to find out how they are dealing with the issue.
At 8 a.m. in a cafeteria inside a university located in Seoul, many students start lining up to have their breakfast.
The meal here is only 1,000 won. I come here pretty much every day of the week.
This meal, which costs only 75 cents under a governmental project, so that students can get a healthy breakfast at a reasonable price, is one way university students in South Korea are lowering food expenses at a time of high prices. But as the only meal available under this program is breakfast, and as data from Statistics Korea showed that dining out prices rose 3.8% on year in February, marking 33 straight months of increases, students are figuring out other ways to cope. Convenience stores are another option for university students who want a cheap meal. This lunchbox costs around 5,000 won, or in US dollars, about $3.70. And convenience stores are also launching promotions to make such food items even cheaper. But students I spoke to said it is not easy for them to budget for food.
After entering university, there are occasions where I have to eat out and drink in order to make more friends.
Freshmen are spending more due to social gatherings where they can make new friends.
I spent about $750 this month as I participated in gatherings and as people tend to order and spend more at those gatherings because we usually split the bill.
Some said they make their own food at home or sometimes even skip meals when they do not have engagements to lower expenses. One concerned professor said more support is needed.
The government should be actively supporting university students who are our future workers, although they might not have income right now.
She added, local governments should support restaurants near universities, including helping with electricity bills so that they could lower food prices, and that those restaurants should be monitored to ensure they do so. Park Gun, Arirang News.
In other news, rural development authorities are working to better support initiatives aimed at tailoring technology for local farms to allow for greater productivity at lower costs. Jong-un explains.
This is brewer's spent grain, or BSG, the leftover residue from making beer. It contains twice as much protein as flour with fewer calories, making it highly nutritious. This Hanu cattle farm uses BSG mixed with hay to produce high-quality fiber-mixed feed. While maintaining the Hanu grade, the farm has saved about 350,000 won, or roughly $260 in feed per 2 cattle.
The cost of feed, which was about 4 million won, dropped to the mid 2 million to early 3 million range, while the cattle grade is similar.
Spring onions grow in this hydroponic farm where nutrients are supplied to crops through pipes. Unlike open fields, hydroponic farms are not affected by weather, soil, or pests, and farmers don't have to stoop down to work, which makes farming easier. From being harvested twice a year in the open field, it's now possible to harvest up to 8 times a year with hydroponic cultivation.
With hydroponic cultivation, it's possible to harvest 4 to 8 times, and the profit is generally 3 to 4 times higher than in open fields.
This transport robot follows workers and assists with labor. It can operate continuously for over 10 hours and carry up to 300 kilograms. According to an analysis of the effects of the new technology distribution project promoted by the Rural Development Administration last year, income and productivity increased by over 30%, while production costs were reduced by 26%.
To enhance agricultural competitiveness, rapid distribution of developed technologies is crucial. We plan to actively promote customized new technology dissemination projects to meet the needs.
The Rural Development Administration plans to invest 64.2 billion won, or roughly $48 million this year, a 16% increase from last year, to carry out 134 new technology distribution projects. Jong-un, Arirang News.
As the rain stopped today, clear skies gradually emerged. However, as winds are blowing strongly, the chill remains. Temperatures have dropped after the sun went down due to the daily temperature differences. If you're out late, make sure to control your body temperature. Tomorrow it will be warmer than today as the daytime temperature in Seoul will rise to 17 degrees Celsius with a lot of clouds. However, there is another round of rain across the country on Thursday. While a strong wind warning has been issued for the east coast areas of Gyeongsang-do provinces and Jeju Island, the waves will be high until tomorrow. Special attention should be paid to safety accidents, such as by refraining from approaching the coast. A chilly morning will be seen tomorrow. Daejeon and Daegu 4 degrees, Gyeongju and Chuncheon 0 degrees. Daytime temperatures will rise even faster, continuing the clear spring weather. Highs will move up to 18 in Daejeon, Gwangju, and Gyeongju. From the second half of the week, clear skies will gradually recover and warm spring weather is expected to continue. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Good night.